Every once in a great while, a genuine dyed-in-the-wool Washington insider lets his hair down after an election and tells us what he really believes. Such is the case with Paul Krugman, Nobel laureate, New York Times columnist, and godfather of Keynesian or leftist economics, an intellectual force on the left. With Barack Obama now safely ensconced in the White House for 4 more years, Krugman makes, even for him, a startling admission in his recent op-ed. He pines for the good old days of the 1950s, more specifically the 91%, yes, 91% tax rate for the rich. One keeps expecting him to stipulate that he's using hyperbole to make a point, but he never does, concluding his column with the words, "We can do that again." He actually believes a return of the 91% tax rate would be good for America, good for a country that's still in the throes of a stagnant economy, high unemployment, increasing government dependency, and frightening levels of debt. This is much like the issue of health care in this sense. While taking great pains to sell the Rube Goldberg contraption known as Obamacare based on the continuation of the nation's insurance structure, the promise that you can keep your current plan, and other soothing rhetoric, it's undeniable that the leftists who now hold the White House and Senate desire a full European-style government-run single-payer solution. They just know they could never really admit it or get it passed. Krugman has now blown the cover of leftists who say they want only a small tax increase on the wealthiest Americans, the top 1% or 2% who are easy to demonize. Who really believes they want to stop there? Mr. Krugman, who actually criticized the Obama administration well before the election cycle for not spending enough, especially on the failed billion-dollar stimulus, has long favored an even larger welfare state. So the question for this brilliant economist is, with a 91% tax rate on the goose that lays the golden egg, i.e. the job creators, that will unquestionably lead to dramatically less production and more money moving offshore, where exactly does he intend to find a sufficient number of makers who create the piggy bank for the takers? For those who might answer by saying that the increased tax revenues from the super wealthy will cover a multitude of budgetary sins, we know full well that even a 100% tax rate on the evil rich will hardly make a dent in our debt crisis, even if you somehow buy the laughably and fatally flawed argument that an astronomical tax rate will have no impact on private economic activity. Krugman doesn't stop his true confessions there. He attacks the, quote, mansions, army of servants, and yachts of the plutocrats. And then he essentially lumps all opponents of his point of view, those of us who actually believe, as the founders did, in the power of the individual rather than the government, in a sustainable rather than unsustainable level of government spending, and in incentives for productive and fulfilling lives rather than dependency, as racist, sexist, homophobic McCarthyites. Now, one might ordinarily laugh off such a tragically misguided and discredited viewpoint, expecting it to come from an outright, professed, unreconstructed communist. But this is a guy who's actually venerated by the freshly empowered secular left. We should all long remember this column and wave it as a bloody shirt in future elections. After all, with enemies like this, who needs friends?